In view of the enjoyment which we in this country derive from baseball, it would be a sporting gesture to let the English inventors know that we are very much obliged to them. However, with publication of the Commission's report in the spring of '08, followed shortly by Chadwick's death from complications of a cold, aggravated by his ill-advised attendance at a drizzly opening day, the contest as to who invented baseball had ceased to be one of national origin. It soon boiled down to a two-man affair, both contestants American. Doubleday, whose dossier bore an official stamp, took the lead over the late-to-the-fair Cartwright and has held it, except among knowledgeable fans, to the present day. Like Henderson's report, the forerunner of his 1947 book, Ball, Bat, and Bishop, Kieran's commentary amounted to a howl in the wilderness, for the Baseball Hall of Fame had already been designated for Cooperstown as consecration of Doubleday's ingenuity. Recent scholarship, especially that of David Block in Baseball Before We Knew It, has swung Origin's interest back to the mother country while affirming Henderson's view that bat and ball games are of great variety, antiquity, and geographic diversity, tangled up in the same evolutionary bramble bush from which baseball emerged. In this book we may touch upon some of these variant games, from the banks of the Nile, Seker Hamat, to the meadows of medieval England, stool ball, to 20th century Finland, pesapallo. But this story of baseball takes place in America. Decades ago, when I became convinced that the well-worn tales about the rise and flower of the game were largely untrue, I determined to set matters straight. In other words, to fashion a history based upon excavation of fresh documentary evidence and to expose the truth. However, as time wore on, I found myself more engaged by the lies and the reasons for their creation, and have sought here not simply to contradict, but to fathom them. And the liars and schemers in this not-so-innocent age of the game proved to be far more compelling characters than the straight arrows. In the Garden of Eden, after all, Adam and Eve are boars. It is the serpent who holds our attention. Why, I wondered, had so many individuals expended so much energy in trying to shape and control the creation myth of baseball, to return to an Edenic past, real or imagined, to create the legend of a fall from grace instigated by gamblers? That became the driving question behind this book. Baseball nostalgia, which I had always dismissed as curdled history for the soft of heart and head, now began to have an edge to it. It has turned out that Spaulding and Chadwick, like the calculating exponents of Doubleday and Cartwright, were not mere liars and blowhards. They were conscious architects of legend, shapers of national identity, would-be creators of a useful past and binding archetypes, clever lads, noble warriors, despised knaves, sly jesters, wounded heroes, and so on. In short, they were historians, as that term once was understood. They were trying to create a national mythology from baseball, which they identified as America's secular religion, because it seemed to supply faith for the faithless and unify them, perhaps in a way that might suit other ends. If, in the process of crafting this useful past, certain individuals, events, ball clubs, even competing versions of the game, like those played in New England or Pennsylvania, had to be left along the road in the name of progress, so be it. In The Death of the Past, J.H. Plum described this earlier model for history as the establishment of a psychological reality used for a social purpose, to stress the virtues of courage, endurance, strength, loyalty, and indifference to death. If we substitute injury for death in that formulation, we have a fair definition of the virtues of sport, providing for its players sublimated graduated danger in preparation for national service, and for its spectators a salutary exposure to risk through dashed hopes or unsuccessful wagers. The analytical impulse that marks modern historiography is, in Plum's view, nothing less than an assault on the created ideology or myths by which people have given meaning to their institutions and societies. Large narratives and small pieties are swept away, replaced by skepticism, and sometimes the bright, if not warming light, of truth. One may ask, apart from why it may have mattered to so many in the past, why do the origins of baseball matter today? Why does each announcement of a new find, an advertisement for a game of baseball